Thank you so much for being here with us. As I mentioned, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm from the California Board of Accountancy, which we'll refer to often as the CBA. And for almost 7 years, having served twice as president. And so in my introduction, and I think on the back of your programs, you can read all about that. So I want to thank you from my fellow board members. When we're in fully seated and appointed, we have 15 of us. So a lot of board members busy at the helm. And we have some 100 staff. We have a few of them here this evening. They are phenomenal. I have worked, for 15 years on the advisory committees and almost 7 years on the board with many of them personally. They are fantastic. So you don't mind if I take a minute to brag about them, right? It's all okay. Okay, good. Thank you. So we appreciate being here with you, and you're being here as well and having an interest in pursuing a career in public accounting, we hope. And it's our desire to help you along the way from getting the education, knowing what you need to actually sit and take the exam, taking the exam, and then becoming licensed once you're licensed along the way, because there are renewals. And so the CBA is there for you for that duration. We want you to know that. And our qualified, wonderful 100 staff are there, and they're the ones that do the heavy lifting on all of it. I'll tell you that. So the nice thing is you're hearing directly from us what it takes to do all of that instead of guessing or reading and trying to figure it all out. That's why we're here. We've been here, I think, David, 5 years in a row, and I've been here maybe 3 of those or something, and I just appreciate being invited, and for all of us to be invited back. It's wonderful. So now let's talk about the CBA and exactly what we do so that you understand what we do and how we work. So we're a state agency, and we regulate the practice of public accountancy in California. We issue CPA licenses to those that have met the requirements under the law. So it's pretty rigid. It's really important because when you become one of those, like I am, you're really in an important body of professionals. And so it's really important to understand all of that and all the benefits of doing that. So in California, we're a very large state with a lot of important things going on. We have over 116,000 licensees. That's the biggest of all the jurisdictions. That's why we have to have the 15-member board and 100 staff to do all that work. But the question is, why do we do it? Well, we have a mission that's really pretty simple. It revolves all around consumer protection, whether they be individuals or businesses, and those that rely on services performed by California CPAs, or whether it's a direct reliance or an indirect reliance. And so that mission underscores everything that we do at the California Board of Accountancy. So along those lines, we're responsible for evaluating all of the applications that come in for licensure, determine whether they meet the requirements, and we're only going to give licenses to those that do meet them, with pretty stringent requirements. Every 2 years, we have continuing education that we have to meet, and there are certain components that have to be accomplished. That keeps the licensees abreast of the ever-changing environment, all the changes in technical standards, all the changes in business transactions. We know that our world is becoming more and more complicated as we go. So that is all very, very important. And it's to keep that knowledge level high so that, like, when I renew, I'm continuing to practice in accordance with professional standards and keeping the quality of the service at a very high level. Nobody can take that away from us once we have that. It's very, very important. So it was mentioned that I was served on advisory committees. I did that for some 15 years. And you have to remember that just like I'm here, I'm on the Board of Accountancy, I served on those advisory committees. You can do that too. It's very rewarding. You need to consider that along the way in your career. It's nice for me to do what I do and what I have done, so I have a say about my profession. That it's not just an indirect, feedback, it's a direct say. And of course, I'm one of lots of people that have that say, but at least I have a voice. And so those committees are comprised of professionals that volunteer their time. They realize the importance and the benefits of doing so and having that involvement. Their important work allows the board and our staff to do the work that they have to do as a regulatory agency. So I really want you to think about that along the way and realize how rewarding and just even the personal gain, professional growth you get from doing that is really incredible. So let's talk about the benefits of achieving the title of CPA. So accounting, the profession, is a long and important history. The needs have never been greater than before. Now, if you saw me the last 2 years, you probably heard me say the same thing, but I'm going to keep saying it because the environment keeps changing. The business environment keeps changing. Technology changes. Tax laws, accounting and audit rules, everything keeps changing. And so that's why, we're in a profession that's very exciting. We're never going to get dull. We're never going to be bored with what we're doing. And so that's very, very important. There are technological advances too, which you hear about all the time. And you know that the CPA exam last year was evolved and was changed to incorporate many of the changes as a part of the CPA Evolution Initiative. So I'm pretty sure you all would have heard about that. So future CPAs will be better equipped than ever to deal with all this changing environment. So it's really a really exciting time to be in the profession, much more than I can remember a long time ago when I got into it. I didn't have all this much going on, so I'm very envious. So let's talk about my career as a CPA. The whole time I spent my career working in the CPA firm environment. It was just a few firms, and I ultimately became an owner, a partner in the firm. So as a part of that, the way I view what I chose to do, and we'll talk in a little bit about what you may choose to do, it made me a part of a body of professionals that practice by a set of important principles, regulations, and standards. And to me, that's pretty cool. It's pretty important. And it just makes me an important part of something that's really critical to business. So I'm very happy about that. But it also, being a CPA also brings a wide variety of industries one can work with. It also brings you prestige and respect, career development, career security, job satisfaction, and money and benefits. Now, do you get the money right away? No, you work and you get there. I worked and I got there, and that's just kind of the way it is. You have to develop your foundation and then you get there. And so that's kind of something to remember. It's not immediate, but it does happen, and it's very worthwhile in the long run. So with the CPA license, you become a valuable commodity that makes you in very high demand in the marketplace. And so speaking of the wide variety of options I mentioned just a little bit ago, you can work in a public accounting firm your whole career, as I have done and chosen to do. You can be specialized within that firm. So you can be within the firm and say, I really like tax, or I like employee benefit plans, or I want to be an auditor, or there are many choices. And even within those, you can specialize. So you have lots of choices. But you can also work with a company in private industry, a governmental agency, or a nonprofit organization. But get the CPA, because once you do that, you are really in demand compared to everybody else trying to seek those positions. So I think you can see that your options are rather limitless. So on a national level, let's talk on a national level. Our organization, our board, our staff have been very involved in the discussions that are really important to the profession and growing the pipeline. How many of you have heard the term pipeline or read about it? Okay, you've heard about what that is. And so we define it as the amount of college students completing the necessary education to sit for the CPA exam that will eventually be able to obtain licensing. Now, there's a concern about all those CPAs that will soon be retiring and leaving the job market. And more data is revealing that here in the not too distant future, there will not be enough of you all in to fill those spots. So talk about market value and demand. You got to remember that. Valuable commodity. Remember that. So it's perfect time for you to be joining in, and know that we're working on that, as are many jurisdictions, but California has been at the forefront, I have to tell you. So we're exploring ways to meet it, and we've got to provide those resources because why? In California, we need consumer protection. Very, very important. We're hearing feedback. We did all kinds of surveys and town hall meetings, met with educators on different campuses, and we're hearing that we need to, create more flexible pathways to become a CPA. We need to make the requirements easier to understand. Now, that doesn't mean lower the quality, lower the standard. It means create a pathway to get there even better. So my colleague David Hemphill will go into that a little bit further in just a few minutes. So it's an interesting time. I hope that you continue along the path, because it's very, very enjoyable, very rewarding, and something that you can be very proud of, as I am. So now let's talk a little bit about all the technology, everything we're hearing about AI, okay? And I have something interesting to share with you that just came up yesterday. But remember that all of those things are tools to take care of the mundane, repetitive tasks, to relieve us, to accept the challenges, okay? That's what they are. They are tools. So just yesterday, I thought of all of you. At 10 o'clock in the morning, I attended a webcast. It was sponsored by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the AICPA. Their president and CEO, Mark Koziol, mentioned, you know, way back when, and I think he was talking about the early to mid 80s, Excel, the internet, we had access, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, this is going to put the CPAs out of work. And that was true. That was being said. And he said, and now we have AI, and everybody's so worried. But remember, it is just another tool, because we still need sound judgment and thinking, right? Those tools can't make wise decisions. They can provide information so that you can. They can do an analysis and analytics on all kinds of data, because it's too vast for us to do, but we still have to be involved in those things. So it allows us to take on the challenges more so than, and have the mundane handled by the tool. So I just thought that was very fitting for tonight, and I wanted to share that with you. So I want you to stick with your decision to becoming a CPA. Stay on that path. I want to thank you for allowing us to be here. And then I want to introduce or have David Hemphill come up. He is our Information and Planning Officer, and he's going to share some information about licensure. So over to you, David.
Okay, if I use this one. Well, hello, everyone. So I'm David. I am not a CPA, but I work for the CBA, right? California Board of Accountancy. I'm one of the 100 or so staff that she mentioned. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my other staff members. Oh, you have moved. You were there. I'm like, where did they go? So I've got Mick back here. He's our outreach coordinator. So he makes sure we get out and about to spread the word to find folks like you. I've got Jacob over there, who's our multimedia guy. So all the fun videos you might see, if you go to our CBA website or our social media, Jacob does that. Then we have a couple of our licensing division staff that hopefully helped you out today, maybe with some transcript reviews. We have Al and Alexis back there. So let's give them all a round of applause. Thank you all for being here. So I was here 2 years ago. I didn't come last year, so we have been here several years in a row, so I'm happy to be back. It's pretty fun to be here. So I'm going to lay a lot of information on you. It's going to be a lot, and you probably won't comprehend necessarily all of it, but we do have a website that you can find all of that later. But it'll be good for you to hear all of this. So I'll walk you through all the requirements, both for the exam and for licensure. I'll kind of walk you through the application process, what goes through. Then I'll give you a little, just a little peek at our website too, in case you haven't been there, and you kind of help navigate your way around our website. So here we go. Off we go to the CPA Roadmap. That's what we call this. So we're off on a little journey together. So let's talk about the CPA exam first. So 3 sections, 3 core sections, which are accounting, auditing, and tax, along with 1 discipline section. There's actually 3. You choose 1. You can see the names and the abbreviations. People just refer to them, right, as odd and far and reg and things like that. So those are the names. Whichever discipline section you choose is kind of to demonstrate a deeper knowledge in that. It's not like you'll get a different license. There's only 1 license, but you just choose which is going to be the more interesting to you, or perhaps the career that you're kind of going towards. So that's the CPA exam. 3 core sections, and then choose 1 of those 3 discipline sections. So what do you have to do to qualify to sit for the CPA exam? So first thing you have to have is a bachelor's degree in any field. It doesn't have to be accounting, just any field. And then you have to have 24 semester units of accounting courses along with 24 semester units of business-related courses. And there is a good amount of flexibility as far as when you can meet those exam requirements. So you can actually apply for the exam before finishing your degree and necessary units. So for those of you who are, how many are graduating like this month? Got a few of you? Woohoo! Be excited. Let's go. All right. Congratulations. There you go. I'll give you a round of applause. So for those of you at that point, or maybe if you're graduating, say in December, as you're entering that last semester, we have something that's called early entry. So as long as you're within 180 days of completing your educational requirements, you can go that route. So that is early entry. I'll talk a little more about that in just a second. So you'll need to send some transcripts to us. How many have already sent transcripts to the CPA? I talked to a few of you already, so all right, we're taking good care of them. Did you send them electronically, please? Okay. They're still, you should see the office. In the old days, before, when it was still paper, we just have transcripts everywhere. We have files. It's kind of fun to walk into the main file room because we have the applications all. I like to go to the very, very back where it's like CPA number 200. I think the oldest one we have is like 1,000 or something. But it's someone who applied in the 40s. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I don't know why we still have all this because they're not with me. But anyway, that's a tangent. So the key is send us your transcripts electronically like we do. So that's option number one. We recommend that. So that's the quickest and easiest way for us because we're trying to get away from all that paper. But you do have two other options. You can request your school to send it over directly to the CBA, or you can actually send it yourself. But if you do that, make sure it has to be still sealed, right? The envelope can't be open because then it's not official, all of that things. So we do have a dedicated email address to send your transcripts to, which is cbatranscripts@cba.ca.gov. All right, so that's how you get your transcripts to us. One important thing to note, so we're excited you're graduating, but before you send your transcripts, make sure your degree is on there and conferred on your transcript. Because if it's not, then we'll have to kick it back to you, and then that'll delay things just a little bit. So make sure you get that degree conferred on there.
Early entry, there is one other document as well that I'll talk about in a sec. If anyone has obtained education outside of the United States, you just need to have that education evaluated by a CEA-approved foreign credential evaluation service. So we're not going to go through your transcripts. The evaluation service will do that, and then they'll send them directly to us. We also have a list of those evaluation service providers on the website. Okay, got all that. Now it's time to apply. So here's what you do. You're going to create your very own CBA client account. This is how you're going to create your application remittance forms, check the status of your exam application, and you'll actually view your scores here through this portal as well once you start taking the exam. So here's the one thing that I'm not too happy to say, because even though you are creating your account online, at this point, you still have to mail in your application remittance form. Print it, sign it, mail it, along with a check. I'm sorry, it won't be much longer. We're working on this. You will all be online, perhaps either later this year, but we're very close to doing it. But for now, that's what you still have to do. Like I said, it won't be long. So since there are 4 sections to the CPA exam, you will most likely be sending us a few application remittance forms during your testing process because you'll need a new one each time you want to take one or more new sessions of the exam. And I'll tell you why in just a second. All right, so the first time you send us an application remittance form, that is essentially you apply, take the CPA exam. It's at that point that we'll review your transcripts and determine if you've met the educational requirements, which are bachelor's degree, 24 units of accounting subjects, 24 units of business-related subjects. You're with me? I like that. For early entry, it's just a little bit different because obviously you haven't completed them by completed your educational requirements, yes. And there's also something they call a certificate of enrollment form, which essentially gives us proof that you're currently enrolled in the classes that you're in the process of taking. So we'll just take a quick peek of that. It's on the CDA website, and then you'll send us your transcripts so we can see everything you've done. And then once we say, yep, you're on the right path, then you are it as an early entry candidate. All right. Let me tell you one more thing about early entry. So I mentioned 180 days. So that's essentially 6 months, right? So basically, as you're entering that last semester of completing, you can send us the application. The only other thing you need to think about is you have 240 days or 8 months from the day you apply to give us the proof. Essentially, send us that final transcript with your degree conferred. So 240 days to do that. If not, you may not get credit for an exam session. You may or be passed if we all on that task. Make sure you remember sheet that. All right, you're approved. Woohoo! Congratulations. So each time you send us an application remittance form, your client account will update, and it will give you the option to now select your exam sections, right? You're going to have to pass 4, right? Free core plus 1 discipline. So the order you take those, completely up to you, your choice. Most candidates prefer to, spread them out a little bit to allow plenty of time to study from whatever else is going on in your life, personal commitments, current testing windows, all of that. So we are part of the scheduling process for the CPA exam. Sorry, CPA, get confused. But you'll now have your first interactions with a company or an organization called NASBA. So that's short for the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy. I'm going to have a lot of acronyms coming your way, so get ready. So you'll know that really well, because I have one now called the ATT, which has nothing to do with the phone company. But I'm a Giants fan. I don't really know why, but I'm a Giants. You used to have AT&T Park, so I used to be able to make that joke. It's not AT&T Park. Can't make that joke. But anyway, I digress. So let's get back to the ATT, which is an authorization to test. And when you select your sections in your client account, we will send an ATT to NASBA. So that alerts NASBA that, all right, this person is approved, they're good to go, they're ready to do it. NASBA will send you a payment coupon, good for 90 days. At that point, you'll pay your fees, your exam session fees to NASBA. All right. Once you pay those fees, you can't change your mind on your sections. So make sure if you do want to change a section, you can, before you pay, you can contact us and we'll help you out with that. But once you pay, NASBA's not going to say, here's your money. All right. NASBA's I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's the way you do it. All right. So, ready for another one? NTS. So this is notice to schedule. So that's the next thing that's going to happen. So once you pay your fees, then you will get from NASBA your NTS, your notice to schedule. So that gives you 9 months to actually schedule and sit for that exam session that you told us that you wanted to take. With each NTS or with each application remittance form, essentially, you can choose one section. You could choose 2. If you think you would knock out 2 during 9 months, I mean, you could choose 3 or 4. I don't think we would recommend that because that would be a lot of pressure to get it all done in that. But again, that is completely up to you. So light up, or you can choose. You can actually have more than one NTS open. So say you just put in one section with a particular NTS and it's 5 months in and you passed it and you're done. You don't have to wait for the 9 months to expire. You just go right ahead and put in your next application remittance form. Will lead to the ATT to meet, right? All of that. That is the process. All right, so you have a total of 30 months or 2.5 years to pass all 4 sections. So let's say I took bar today, my first section. Pretty excited. I think I have studied so hard. So I would have 30 more months, or essentially 2.5 years. That would get me to a November 8th, 2027 to pass the other CRE sessions. So the date you apply doesn't matter. It's the date you pass your per section. And that's when you're 30 months. Sorry, it's a ticket. All right. One last note about the NTS. Make sure it matches the spelling of your name on your ID card exactly. Otherwise, there's a chance they might not. So just make sure it's someday it's not correct, but that will get fixed as soon as possible. Okay. You paid your section fees to NASBA. You got your NTS. Time to start set. Time to start prepare. So, no all-nighters are going to work for this. You need to put in some time. It's a big test. So, get going on that. There's lots of great resources on AICPA's website. I'm going to talk a little more about AICPA and what they do in just a second. They're actually the ones who developed the test and will be scoring the test. That's what. So they have CPA exam blueprints on there. You can learn about the specific topics. They kind of give you percentages of how much each topic is in each section. So it's very useful. Blueprints, tutorial topics, lots of this. And it's free on that website. So I encourage you to take advantage of all of that. Of course, there's crash services out there as well that you could use, that you could pay for if you want to go that way. I've heard from a lot of the CPAs, since Corrigan being one of them, they always give the advice that the sooner you can take the CPA exam after you graduate is such a big benefit. When hopefully it's still mostly up there. A lot of people will choose to maybe just start working for a little bit and they're like, oh, I'll get around to it eventually. But that would be a good word of advice for us. Get going on those exams as soon as you can. We get to know a company by the name of Prometric. So Prometric operates testing centers all around the world, and they will be the ones to actually administer the CPA exam to you. So schedule your exam section on their online scheduling tool. I think that's then what their web page looks like there. Their testing centers are normally open about 6 days a week. Schedule as early as possible because they do tend to fill up sometimes. We allow you to test at any of their locations in anywhere in the U.S., District of Columbia, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Guam. So your options. So once you get your exam scheduled and the day arrives, just a couple more tips, maybe kind of obvious, but get there early. Allow a half hour, 45 minutes before your appointment. Time and park. Try to find where the place is. You don't want to be rushed. Go through the check-in process. So don't be stressed on such a big day of taking your CPA exam. And make sure you bring that actual paper NTS and a valid and unexpired ID card. And without those, you will not be allowed. There's a lot of base for you here. So just kind of if you took the test. So if I took the test, let's see, where are we? Up to May 16th. But that would be kind of the window we're in right now. I would get my score back on May 28th. So if I took it today, it'd be about a 3-week turnaround. As you can see, it's pretty much in that 2 to 3 week range, depending on where you are. But the discipline sections take a little longer, so you'll notice the disciplines are generally only offered 1 month per quarter right now. So that will take a little more preparation on your part to make sure you get that plan. Although we're about to enter into an extra month that they're giving us because there was a lot of credits that were extended from COVID and lots of other reasons. So there's a lot of people who have credits expire at the end of June. So they decided for it long hair. But as you could see, if you take it in, say, April, so the month table, you'll get it back next May. You take it during the month of June, you'll get it back to you. So a little bit of a longer turnaround on that. Next, absolute forward. See. So one of the interesting things is how do you get your scores and how quickly. So that's the actual days. But the way it works is Prometric sends your test data, your answers, to AICPA. So AICPA then grades them, goes through everything, assigns the score. They send the score to NASBA. So NASBA processes it through their gateway and everything. And then the NASBA computers talk to the CBA computers, and then it gets uploaded into your Apply thing. So it generally happens the night of. So it's, let's say, May 16th. So it generally is like late night, overnight, the 16th into the 7th. So just know that I'll just be fully transparent with you right now. There are other jurisdictions that, for one reason or another, probably the fact that they have significantly less people taking the exam than California, they get them a little sooner than ours. But again, it's a fully automated process. It's just the computers talking to each other. So you be the one to be mad at us on X because you didn't get your score yet. You know when it's coming. It happens every time. We try to explain. So you're just hearing it directly from me. We're not out to get you. That's when it's good. There we go. See, we're here to help, I promise. Okay, so once you pass all 4 with a score of, what the passing score is? Good, 75. So let's see. 75 is a very good score for this. So your client account will be updated to say credit. So you'll see the 4 sections there will say credit. So that'll be his big day. They're like, all right, so got credit. There's 1 down, 3 to go. And eventually it'll say credit, 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 credit. And we'll be really excited. We will send you a congratulatory letter, email with information on your next steps that will actually begin working on your CPA license. And once you pass your exam, there's no time frame that you say, all right, now I only have 12 months to go. Once you pass your exam, that never expires. You are always an exam conqueror, and whenever you're ready, you apply to your license. That is good. Okay. I'm going to take a quick break right here. If we have any questions about the exam and the exam process requirements before I jump into licensure. So, and we have questions. I mean, have Nick, he's the man to walk around, stick a light in your face to the alarm. He is a trained professional. So I saw push a licensing staff I may if I need help I will read sign. Oh. And you so like you said, to double check, you said you're 30 months to get all 4 parts done. On the day you apply, the day you pass your part. Yes, correct. Yeah, so it's kind of a a rolling thing. If God forbid you didn't get them all done, essentially that first date would go away, and then your 30 months was shipped to the date of your next axing reg. So, but hopefully you can get them all done. It wasn't that long ago. It was 18 months, right? And really was only less than 2 years, a year and a half ago was when it changed. So you used to have to get it done in a year and a half, and now you have 2.5 years. So there you go. I'm already a licensed CPA, but I wanted to plug this out. Oh. What are your guys' benefits for veterans? Because I'm a veteran and I had a very great time applying for my license. Well, we do have expedited licensure, which were you able to take advantage of that 1 day permitting your license? Wow, that is awesome. So there you go. Yeah, we do have a special. We actually have a dedicated liaison. You add your own phone number and your own email address. So it's for active or former military and their spouses or kinestic partners. So yeah, expedited licensure. And we also do for refugees and special immigrant visa holders as well. They have a similar from it. Yes. So it's really, so it goes, wow, 1 day. That's cool. Yeah. So, thank you for your service. Any other exam-related questions before we move on? Yeah.
So I enrolled in the MSA 3-2 program, and so I'll be done with my undergrad this spring. But technically, I think we go get both degrees until next May. And so I finished the master's, which for me, I think it's next spring. So if you only have the 6-month period, would I be able to start sitting now that I'm completed, or how would that work?
Ashley, Alexis, can you help me out with that one?
I'm not well versed in the HJD applicant, but I know that you would need a letter from the educational institution that basically states, this individual has completed their bachelor's, but they're not going to confer on the transcript until they also confer their master's. And then
some options B, right?
Yeah.
Do you all have the handouts? I know some of you actually. Why don't we do you want to maybe hand out some of those other folders to those? If you did not get a folder, so essentially we gave some out to those who did the transcript reviews. But we have some good information in there. So raise your hand if you're a student and did not get all folders, and Mick will put it to sir. So they'll hand these out. So in there, so there's something called the examination quick tips. We also have the licensure quick tips, and they have the education tip sheet, the lottery address. But I think the one about you, I think you're option B as far as an exam candidate. Or DI. B do have great success. Any other questions about all these? And through. Hey, Park Tilt. Yeah. All right, so I'll move on now to the licensure requirements. All right, so now that you passed the CPA exam, feel good. Time to start thinking about applying for your license. So on the exam side, at all those acronyms, it's gonna be a lot easier now for licensure because all you have to remember is one letter, the letter E. We call it the 3 E's, which is an easy way to kind of categorize the requirements. So examination is the first E, so that's what we've dealt with already. So once you pass the CPA exam, that's the first E taken care of. Then we have education and experience. So those are the next 2 E's. Now, let's get into the educational requirements right now. Because when we approved you to sit for the exam. Bachelor's degree, 24 units accounting, 24 units business related. There are additional education requirements for licensure. So that's what you see up here right now. So those are an additional 20 semester units of accounting study, and then 10 semester units of prefix. And at least 4 of those are focused on accounting ethics. Then there is that 150 total units required. So 150 semester units. And about half of those, so when you add up the 24, the 24, the 20, and the 10, about half of those are accounted for. Accounting joke. With all of those. But beyond that, a lot of people ask, well, what else do I have to take to get to what could be? Anything. You know. Probably it would be good to take more stuff related to your career, but it does that. You know. Oh, to take your ballroom dancing, you're right. Now, what's that? Go ahead. Knock yourself out. But the 150 stuff. Now, remember, I'm getting in a little bit, Ms. Corrigan mentioned how that we have some changes off the table. So these may only be in effect for about another year and a half. But I'll get to that in just a sec. For now, this is what it is, so I'm going to continue down this road. Okay, so those are your additional education requirements. So 20 more accounting, 10 ethics, and that total requirement of 150. A lot of people are confused about the 150, thinking they have to have that for the exam. You don't, right? That is not an exam requirement. So that can happen. That's just a requirement for licensure. All right, so now on to the third E, which is experience. So you have to complete 1 year general accounting experience under the supervision of an actively licensed CPA. So that's an important thing. So make sure as you're entering your internship, or an internships count for this as well. Internship for or job. Make sure your employer knows that that's her plan. You know, you want him to sign off for her of your accounting experience. Because sometimes we actually have stories like this where the supervisor went inactive during the time and the individual was not aware of that. And it's heartbreaking at the end because they thought they were done and sorry, we're not. So make sure you have that conversation going in. So that way the supervisor can be ready to let you know if anything was there. You call it a test authority. To do that, you have to gain additional attest experience. So to get that, you have to have a minimum of 500 hours in attest functions during that, and your supervisor also has to have that attest authority as well. So that 500 hours fill up. People say that goes pretty quickly because you're doing a lot of work in there. So that's what. And if you go on the website, we have a license lookup feature on our website. It will actually say, when you look up a CPA, it'll say G for general, for A for an attest. It's just one license. You just have that slightly different authority. The hood can't count. Okay, so there's your 3 E's, right? Examination, education, experience. All right, there you go. We've got some videos up on our website, or you can go on our YouTube. We did a video last summer, actually, about the 3 E's, so you can go watch that. Be entertained there. All right, so once you've done the 3 E's, there's just, you're almost there. Just one more thing you need to do in order to obtain your CPA license. We do get fingerprints. We'll do a live scan. So those of you who live in California, it's fingerprint cards if you live outside of the state. And these will be used to conduct a criminal history background checker. And information will be sent to you on this as soon as we receive your CPA license. Okay, ready to apply. Got all that down? Everything but... All right, I put this for you. This application process is entirely online. Yes. So that's a good thing. So you can do all of it, submit your application, upload supporting documents, pay the application processing fee with a credit card, and you can choose to also pay your initial license fee. So there is, when you renew your license every 2 years, there's a fee involved. That's how we stay in business is procure fees, so look at that. We don't take any money. So, yeah, so that's what pays for it. So you can choose to pay your initial license fee at that point. So that way, once we approve your license, then boom, you're in. If not, then we'll just say, hey, you're approved. Now you gotta pay this, and well, this likely won't take too much longer. But that's how you adjust of how you want to do that. If you have any questions about the fees, we have a page listing all of them on our website. You need to give us an email address, obviously, so we can notify you more quickly if there's anything that's needed to complete your file. So maybe you are deficient a few units in and that happens sometimes. And we'll just send you an email say, hey, you need to finish off those units. You'll have 12 months to finish that. As long as you do it within the 12 months, then you're all good. How long does that take? So our goal is 30 days. And right now, I think we're right at about 20, I think we're less than 3 weeks right now. So it's about 2 to 3 weeks turnaround from when you submit your application to when we will either say, yes, you did it, or you have to need a couple extra years and that's whatever. We actually post these dates every Friday on our website and then also on our social media. So you can see us. We have some fun little calendars that we do. The stars, you boys, it's always exciting. You see how far the stars have moved each week, especially if you're in the process. So that's good stuff. All right, so once you're approved for licensure, we'll send you that approval notification. Yes, told you about 12 ones. So that means that. Yay. Ooh, okay, here we go. Now we're going to get to the butt stuff. Because this is the changes that could be happening. So we've been working on something that we call the Sure CPA project, which stands for Students Understanding the Requirements to be a CPA project. Right? Makes sense? Yeah, okay. So the original goal was to just kind of clarify the requirements. Because all of that, it's not super confusing, but there's, what's the difference between accounting subjects and accounting study? There's a lot of intricacies that go on, like can only be 6 units here or 3 units. So there was a lot of little intricacies that we're hoping are to go away. So when I was here 2 years ago, was anyone here 2 years ago? All right. Do you remember me asking a lot of questions about what part of this do you find confusing? Do you understand this? How would you like to be informed? Things like that. That was actually the very first information gathering session was actually right there at San Bernardino. And we did for over a year, lots of outreach events, lots of town hall events, meeting with other state boards of accountancy, accounting firms, lots of faculty. So it's really been a collaborative effort. It's not like we just all of a sudden are like, let's change everything. So we felt that that's where the percussion was going, partly due to the fact that there's that pipeline issue that they're telling us about. Let's make students more confident in their choices and more confident in their path, in the courses they're taking and things like that. So that's kind of where it started. And it ended up turning into legislation because we can't just do whatever you want. Everything that the CPA does is actually in California state law. So in order to change the law, we have to find a legislator willing to introduce our bill. And so that's where we are. So there's something called Assembly Bill 1175 that is out there. It was introduced by Assembly Member Jackie Earl in February. It's going through the legislative process right now. It has passed the Assembly as of Monday. So that's a big step. It's now in the state Senate. They'll go through the same process. If they pass it, then it'll go to the governor to sign. So that generally happens around September or October. So everything I'm saying right now is still, right? Because it hasn't been signed yet. And things can change along the way. And I don't want to get too confusing, but some of the details are actually going to be set through regulations later. So that's why it's a little difficult to explain, to definitively say a lot of things because we can't say them definitively. But I'm going to give you generally what we think is going to happen and what we hope is going to happen. Okay, so what are the new requirements? So the proposed new licensure requirements are, like we were hoping, simpler. All it is a bachelor's degree with an accounting concentration. That's the educational requirements. That's it. Bachelor's degree with an accounting concentration. What is the accounting concentration? I'll get to that in just a second, because we don't know. Then the experience requirement is going to move up to 2 years. So 2 years of general accounting experience. What we think the accounting concentration is going to be, so you've got to have your bachelor's degree with, we think it's going to be 24 units of accounting subjects. Sound familiar? 24 units of business-related subjects, and then 3 units of ethics. Okay? So that's pretty close what the exam requirements are right now, right? A big deal is that is now going to be the educational requirements for everything, or exam and licensure. So there will not be, okay, I've satisfied the exam requirements. Now I've got this additional 20 and 10 and 130. That's not going to be around anymore. It's just one single set of requirements for everything. So does that sound simple? So we're hoping. So that 150, 5 up. Let's all say it together. 5 up. A lot of people are, there's a lot of opinions of that. But in general, so now that fifth year of school, right, that probably you needed to get to that, could now be used to start gaining experience, right, for that additional year of experience. So a lot of this is still being determined as far as, specifics. It looks like a master's degree, if you choose to pursue that, we definitely encourage that, would take away one of those years of require experience. So now instead of the 2 years of experience requirement, it's 1 year if you have a master's degree. There's other options regarding community colleges and certificates that could also take some of. This is actually what's going to come up at our main meet. Yeah, next Thursday. So next Thursday, 9 o'clock, if you don't have a final or whatever, you could actually kind of watch. There might be, we're discussing exactly this and kind of coming up with some suggestions. So that's where we're going. Lots of ages. Another thing that we are hoping will be part of this is the fact that we want universities to now, we want to recognize a university's program as completely satisfying the educational requirements. So if San Bernardino does this, it'll be essentially kind of like a self-certification that you coming here will know that when I graduate, I could completely satisfy the educational requirements. So we won't even, I hope it doesn't put Al and Alexis out of a job. Well, they do excellent work at reviewing applications and everything. But we won't need to go class by class anymore because you have attended a school with a CPA recognized degree. And all we need to look at is, did you graduate? You see that? You're done with your education requirements. So that's another, like I said, doing our best to kind of streamline and simplify things. You won't have to attend one of those because there could be some schools that choose not to do that. It's not like you can only get your CPA license if you're going to a CEA. We're not necessarily recognizing that. That's too much. But anyway, there's, you can go to a school that even is up that. But I'm just kind of telling you kind of where it's going to happen. All those of you now that are graduating, these new rules will not go into effect until January 1, 2027. So if everything goes and the bill is passed like we anticipate, January 1, 2027 is when now we're going to do it back. For 2 years, you'll have the option to apply under the current rules, the legacy pathway, if you want to call it that, or the new rules. So 2027 to 2028, you'll have the option to go either way. After 2029, once January 1, 2029 hits, that's when it'll only be the new way. Again, the law, those things. Cool. So that's why we're here to kind of help. Like I said, most of you who are graduating now, you're just going to go the way it is, right? But there's probably these students that are just starting in their college careers who are probably, we want to make sure they are aware of this so they can make their important ECs. There we go. All right, so I'll come back and take the questions on that just a sec. So there's the timeline and everything I just talked about. We're in the legislative process right now. Then 2026 is going to be, we're calling it the implementation window. So that's when we're really going to go hard and make sure everybody knows what's to come. Clicking in there, January 1, 2027. And you got those 2 years going either way, and then the south side on the CPAP way. And then you're just on the new that is class E. It's just, sorry. It's got to do a website thing. But anybody got any questions about APAP? Probably do. So licensure requirement questions or any of the new potential changes. So I'm going to do my best to answer the next big question I have afterwards. Leave us up again.
So I saw what you're picking up getting rid of the 150 requirements. is there, like the main reason why you're getting rid of like the 20 units for the accounting you study and also only dropping into the REIT? So like, for grad ethics as well.
As far as ethics, that's a good question because we do get that question a lot. Because there was also something called the professional ethics exam. That used to be a requirement for licensure. So we did a big study that told us that you're getting ethics in many more places now and when those rules went into place, which was about 10 years ago, I think, when it went up to 250, right, in the 2010s. So ethics is embedded in a lot of other courses, and ethics is now part of the CPA exam as well. So it was determined by the board that you're going to get your ethics. So it's not like we're lowering the ethics requirements, because absolutely not. Ethical accountants are a extremely important part of keeping the public's trust in what you're all going to do. So, but yes, that was what was the determination, that 3 units is sufficient because you're getting it in a variety of sources as well. So the 20 and 10, the reason those became part of it was when the requirements were raised to 150. So essentially they went from 120 to 150. Full disclosure, the only reason California did that was in order to keep equivalency with other states. So essentially you could, accountants could perform work across state lines, and there was a big push for mobility back then with the internet age, of course, that people are not just doing, their own local, firms are conducting business worldwide. So, and the data has generally proven that 150 is not necessarily producing more qualified or better CPAs. A lot of the CPAs in this room probably did it under the old rules, right? 120, I would think. So knowing all of that, it wasn't like we're reducing this, we're going to get lower quality. No, we have determined that going in with these new requirements, you will need the minimum competencies to be a fully functional CTA from day one. So that's where we are. But of course, continuing education, right? You're going to keep growing your entire career. Where you're starting is over your units. You would keep growing with CE, all of that. So, and then part of it was, like I said, kind of a financial thing. Honestly, there's lots of students who can't afford that fifth year. And that was a barrier. There was a study that said, I believe minority accounting candidates went down, what was that? Is it 20? It was more than, it was a decent number, like 30% went down just because when that rule went up to the 150 total units. And, California is a very diverse state. We want to keep this profession open, everyone. So, a lot of actors. Read back, please. Yeah. Please make walk all the way across the room. Question. Yes.
Thank you for being here, Nathan. I appreciate you and the CBA always coming to support the students. That's amazing. And hopefully they find a big value in that as well. Mobility is really important to those of us that are CPAs. And I know a lot of the other states are waiting for California to see what is going to happen here before they do it. But some states have already taken our old path. Can you speak to what you see the future of open mobility looks like? And if this happens and other states have different requirements, how are the students that become licensed that might relocate to other states and label to
Like that work. Yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, part of this whole discussion was we spoke with other state boards of accountancy, and I think we talked to at least half of the other states as we were kind of putting this together, just to kind of get their opinions on that as well. And we would not have moved forward with this if we thought it's going to be a major issue. Everyone, California might be the domino that really, but like you mentioned, there's other states that have already come up, Ohio, and there's a couple of others that have already passed legislation going this way. There's many, many others that has legislation currently going through right now. So we, as part of this bill, I didn't get into the mobility part of the bill, but there are so many firm people here. So we changed the language. So now we're not looking for substantial equivalency anymore. In other words, in order to perform here if you're from out of state. The current way was you had to have your licensure requirements had to be substantially equivalent to ours. Now we're changing the wording to comparable licensure requirements, so it doesn't have to be exact. So part of this is allowing states the flexibility to massage their requirements like we are without blowing up the whole system. So we're confident that it's not going to blow up the whole system, and things will work. It's not. We don't know exactly. We don't have a crystal ball, but it's looking like other states are, looking to us for our lead and are vulnerable.
Thank you for sharing that. And can you also add in the A versus the G and how that plays into mobility? Or do you see the there for that?
Miss Corbin wants to try it in. Well,
Wait, I just want to add this. Even though we're looking at CPA equal to CPA, where we're from, that sort of thing, to encourage, cross-boundary, whatever practice, whatever you want to call it. If we find that a jurisdiction is not doing well as far as consumer protection, I talked about but underscores our mission. We have lots of guardrails in place to not, so that their flow in NAP's not as simple. So they may have to jump through some hurdles to be able to practice here if we find that their consumer protection is at risk from, let's say, a certain jurisdiction.
do you want to address his thoughts about A versus G? How that comes into this play?
Well, A versus G, there's still the requirements that I am an A, and I've had my A for quite some time, actually before G's came into B. So it's more of just, monitoring the factors, monitoring the services that are being performed. Yeah, we're going through a whole thing right now where we have CPA firms that are not necessarily owned by a CPA, but they may have A CPAs working for them. We just have to be careful that it is those individuals who are qualified to sign and not necessarily the owner, but that, client is informed as to that. So it's for, I think that's for the consumer protection part. And then I'm not sure if I fully answered, but is that help you? Thank you.
Prior to getting your A license, how common is it for your candidates to get subbed in to present their case, and how is it?
Oh, as far as perform the qualifications committee, or you're asking how common? That's a good question. You were up at Accountancy. I give you that.
Having served on all those committees for such a long time,
If we notice an application coming in where the hours are not quite what we use as the guideline, maybe the firm signing the application has not been up to mustard maybe in the past, we're going to pull that candidate and perhaps that firm in together and review the work. And many times they make it through, but it all depends on quality of the work, supervision, what those circumstances are. I don't know percentages. I know we're kind of seeing some cases where Gs are out there performing audits and a test function, which is a big no-no. But so those things kind of get flagged and you get reported by somebody. Maybe a problem occurs and the client goes, I'm like, this happened to me, and they can report it to the board and that he had a hearing. But as far as, just try to get those hours in and wrap that supervisor your sign off, as fast as possible so that you're not hindered. If you're having a problem with it, I know the board itself sometimes to encourage those firms, those supervisors, hey, this person put in the work. You need to dig out everything you need to sign off. Let's just say you partially complete, you work here at one firm and then you make a change. So send that application in. We keep those, but we accumulate those so that by the time you're ready, we have it all. So that's what you want to do, Lynch. Thank you. Thank you.
Back in February, he went to the Capitol and he went to talk to the representative. And there was the talk that it could be any bachelor's, and then if you receive if you did like a certificate in accounting, that would work. But you just said that we needed to do a bachelor's with concentration in accounting. Did that change?
I'm not sure what may or may not have changed. There are going to be some certificate options. I didn't really mention it, but community college. So we'll probably have some CBA recognized certificates as well that probably will take off 6 months of that 2 years of experience. Although that's something that we're literally discussing next Thursday. So again, a lot of this, right? Caveat in speech. But yeah, so bachelor's, it's always bachelor's in anything, right? It doesn't matter what bachelor's is. But then that accounting concentration, which we think is going to end up 24 at 3. But again, that comes later too. So that essentially is it. If you have, again, the CBA recognized degree, which, your RBMs here, you're a little ahead of the curve. That will happen for you. But for future students, that CBA recognized degree, then this accounting concentration is accounting.
Okay, so for students that changed their major, they computer science, whatever, and then they decide I don't want to do computer science, I want to follow become a CPA. They get a certificate. Hypothetically, if it gets tasked,
There, I believe also on the table is that there could be certificates that, I'm pointing to you, I think, putting you on the spot, that could completely satisfy the accounting concentration. Could, yeah. So I think that's something that's on the table as well. Yeah, and that's literally, this is what's going to be discussed next Thursday at 9 o'clock. So, you could watch. Or even wait for my video that I'll do afterwards with a recap that Jacob's going to do. So we always do recap videos of each meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the tricky thing, because a lot of this, like I said, is going to be in regulations, and all that stuff you just asked about is all going to be in regulations, which we can't do until the bill passes. So that's why it's tough to say this is how it's going to be, because we don't know yet.
Hi. Hello. You mentioned
bachelor's degree, obviously, and with the projection of the credit hours, other than 120, master's degrees are no longer typically required for additional credit hours. Essentially, it's stacked.
what is the idea for the CPA or master's degrees of accountancy going forward?
I mean, we're still encouraging it. We obviously still see the value in them. And we've been having these conversations with faculty kind of leading up to that. And that's been one of the biggest questions is so essentially what, as a student, do you determine the value of a master's to be? Well, money, essentially. Now you have that, okay, student, I'll got the year of experience. Why are you going for that? That was one of the questions in one of the surveys that we did as part of our information gathering. It's kind of interesting, the results. So as of right now, we expect it to take up 1 year of that, but it is not obviously required. 120 is not in the bill anywhere. It's just bachelor's degree. So there's no more numbers involved in, in at least the total year required. That's just in whatever the accounting concentration may have been. So, yeah, I think we're all kind of curious to see where, I don't think anyone wants master's programs to go away. I don't anticipate that, but there's certainly going to be students having to kind of choose which path they want to go down. So, being further. So it's an interesting thing, but we'll see. Any more? If not, I'll just wrap up. I was going to do like a little website overview, but I think we've taken all the time we need to. I'll just say, when you go to the website, there's an applicants tab, and that'll be where you find lots of good information. So a lot of it I handed out to you, so all of this stuff is on the website as well. But there should be, like I said, there's lots of videos up there that kind of help you log you. So I'll just see you at. Here's my military slide right here. See, I was going to get to it. So there's the military and refugees tab. So and do that. And then, like I said, please follow us on social media. Here's some email addresses. If you have any questions, if you're in the exam stage, exam info. Once you pass the exam, then you're ready for licensing. Then it's licensing info. You can always email us at the outreach inbox, and my team will check that. So if you have any more questions that pop into your mind in the next few days, go ahead and email us there. And like I say, we're that's kind of why we come here is we want you to know we're trying to help getting better. We don't want to say no. We want to say yes. We want you to become the CPAs, and we'll do. I mean, you could ask Alan and Alexis. They do a lot of very creative things, moving the units to make sure your units fit in the right places. It can even split like to 3 unit class. So we'll put 2 units here and 1 unit here. Hey, you desk. We want to help you get there. If you have questions, we are definitely here to help. So the California board system. So we're up in Sacramento. So next time you come to the Capitol, swing by our office and we'll give you a tour. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for your attention.